How did Top Rank authorize a Terence Crawford bonus to fight Errol Spence for nearly $1 million? We're going to talk about that in this video. Stay tuned. Scandal. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. We got to talk about it. Now, I got more to say. Per usual, subscribe to the channel. Terence Crawford, in case you missed my other videos, you need to catch up. Check out some of those videos, but basically he's suing former promoter. I'm going to be coming out with several videos about this because, one, I've been telling you that we are on the road to something big like this. Two, I've been telling you, Terence Crawford, there's more than meets the eye as to why the Errol Spence fight was not done with Terence Crawford. There were some people, there were some YouTube channels, some Instagrammers, some Facebook groups, some people on boxing Twitter, and everything was blamed on Al Heyman, PBC, and Errol Spence. Errol Spence's name was dragged through the mud. Dragged through the mud as far as why the fight with Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence that a lot of people want to see had not come into fruition. There was conversations that Al Heyman prevented it and was protecting Errol Spence. Some people alluded to Errol Spence being afraid and terrified, even though he has a better resume, in my opinion, than Terence Crawford. And he's fought a lot of, really all the contemporaries in his stable outside of Terence Crawford, who was the, one man with a different promoter on a different side of the street, and he's continuing to do such with his next fight, which should be announced shortly, with your Dennis Ugas of Cuba. So despite these facts, people painted Errol Spence and marginalized him, kicked him, and put that smut on his name and said, yo, you are the reason this fight is not happening. Now it comes out that Terence Crawford is suing and accusing former promoter of being biased because of his race and also fraudulently entering him into contracts, breaching that contract, and so on and so forth. Now, this is very, very important, and I want you guys to look at this particular section. It says Section E. Your boy Ego, Boxing Ego, this is public information. I have obtained a copy of the current lawsuit that has been filed and the complaints. And this is page 10 of the complaint. They will go to court, most likely, and the rest will be decided. But Section E says that Top Rank fraudulently entered into and breached the 2019 Mean Machine Aegis Kavalauskas championship bout agreement. So there was a bout agreement apparently Terence Crawford had signed, and there were certain perks and incentives. They incentivized him, because I'm not going to read all this stuff verbatim because I've already done that. That's why I said earlier in this video, it is up to you, if you are an avid boxing fan, to subscribe to my channel. I do this every day and it'll keep you up to date. But just to paraphrase and give you guys the cliff notes, it says that ultimately Crawford did not want to fight Mean Machine. That was his mandatory. Maybe he was looking for bigger fights or for whatever reason. So it says Crawford and his negotiating team informed Top Rank Arum and Todd DeBuff, his stepson, that Crawford would not take the Mean Machine fight for the $4 million being offered. So it doesn't really explicitly outline why. Maybe he wanted more than $4 million. Maybe he wanted a bigger name. I don't know. But this was probably some of the start of the friction that would later lead to Crawford going and leaving the company and saying what he said after the Porter fight. But he told him he's not doing the Mean Machine fight for $4 million. And then Top Rank, Arum, and Todd DeBuff informed that Terence Crawford should take the offer because a fight with Errol Spence was right around the corner, and Top Rank could quickly make Spence-Crawford fight happen. The complaint lodges and alleges. In fact, Arum and Todd DeBuff said that, and you know what's weird? I hate to stop the flow of things, but for this to be such like a $10 million lawsuit, which is what Terence Crawford is looking to get, in reading the documents, I have found several spelling errors, like grammatical or spelling errors. Like they spelled Errol Spence and they said Spencer in one portion. I forgot what page it was on. And then as I'm looking for it, you guys will see it on the screen. They spelled Todd DeBuff's name correctly. You know, that's how you spell it. This right here, D-U-B-O-E-U-F. And as I'm reading it, it's just very distracting. It says D Boof. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong profession because I pick up on these things. I have OCD with certain things. So I pick up on things very quickly, and I pick up on things like that. And it's just weird to me that, like, how do you, whoever wrote this or whatever, there's no one that proofreads it. Like, it just seems weird. It's weird that I found multiple spelling errors and I'm not even a judge or anything. Like, I would imagine you would want to present this stuff in the most formal way and eloquent way possible with, you know, minimal spelling errors. But, you know, maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know how much stuff like that matters. It's just something that I noticed. And I just feel like for me, I gotta dot my I's and cross my T's, especially if I'm suing someone like Canelo was suing Golden Boy and DAZN and all that and things like that. But anyway, the Mean Machine bout. Errol Spence, he was the topic of conversation somehow, some way. Says, in fact, Arum and Todd DeBuff said that Top Rank would include a Spence bonus in that bout agreement in excess of $900,000. So basically, he's getting just under $1 million, and it says Arum and DeBuff Spence representations because they were confident that they could make a fight with Crawford and Spence before the end of the very next year, December 31st, 2020. So this made the Kafalauskas Mean Machine fight worth it for Crawford based on this, you know, claim from Bob Arum. But the thing that's really weird and shaky, and Crawford may have a point, again, I'm not a lawyer, I ain't passed the bar, so I don't know how this will all play out. But one thing that I find really interesting is this is what Bob Arum said. Let's go. Roll the clip.
Spence fight. Do you think that will happen?
Roll the clip.
The Errol Spence fight. Do you think that will happen next year? Obviously, we know Errol's been in a situation recently, but
I don't think it'll happen next year.
So the reporter says, even though we know Errol Spence has been in a situation. So this clearly shows that this interview was recorded after Errol Spence's accident. And I remember seeing this after his accident when it came out, right? This was like made headlines or whatever you want to call it. So this was an interview conducted with the same person that made this Errol Spence provision in Terence Crawford's Mean Machine contract and said, hey, we'll give you basically $1 million if in the next year you don't get the Errol Spence fight. So I feel like Crawford may have a leg to stand on with that complaint because Bob Arum is saying, how do you get someone to sign the contract and you state that you're basically gonna secure them the fight that they want? So then they're signing the contract because you're saying, hey, I'll get you the Errol Spence fight, right? And this has to, I feel like moments after he did that, Bob Arum is saying that he don't think Errol Spence will fight again. That it just doesn't make sense to me and my brain.
Right, do you think that will happen next year? Obviously, we know Errol's been in a situation recently, but
I don't think it'll happen next year. I don't think it'll happen the year after.
So the lawsuit is alleging that Terence Crawford's bout agreement for Mean Machine in December 2019. Keep in mind, this is a pivotal year because a few months later, because this was December 2019, that was one of the last fights. Terence Crawford, Mean Machine, another fight with Gervonta Davis and Gamboa. These were some of the last fights in December 2019. And a short few months later, we would be in this major pandemic in the US and worldwide in March of 2020. So that kind of disrupted everything. So before any pandemic, Bob Arum shows a level of uncertainty that the Errol Spence fight could be made because of Errol Spence's accident. So how did you get Terence Crawford to sign this Errol Spence bonus that you could deliver? And then months later, you're doing interviews. This had to have scared Crawford. Like, I thought you were going to give me Errol Spence. And then the lawsuit also alleges that should they not get the fight done, if they didn't get the fight done with Errol Spence, then he would be compensated almost $1 million. And then the pandemic surely hurt Top Rank's business. So I guess they didn't even pay him that. So Terence Crawford, that's why it's gotten to this point, because you were supposed to either give him Errol Spence fight or basically $1 million, and he got neither. So now he has to take it to court. But this is damning testimony when Bob Arum is saying he don't think the fight will happen this year, he don't think the fight will happen next year, and he continues to suggest that Errol Spence is going to be out of commission possibly indefinitely. Let's take a listen.
That will happen next year. Obviously, we know Errol's been in a situation recently, but
I don't think it'll happen next year. I don't think it'll happen the year after. And it's not because promoters don't want it to happen, because I have...
And the funny thing is, he said it's not because promoters don't want it to happen, but previously, Bob Arum made statements that Al Heyman is trying to tell black fighters to stay away and not work with white promoters. He said something crazy like this, right? So how is it the story just the Terence Crawford side, and yes, Bob Arum was part of his side at the time, it just continues to look bad because one minute you said that Al Heyman is the cancer of boxing, and he's basically twisting his fighter's arm and telling them not to sign or sign on to these big fights that you can make because they're black or whatever he said, right? And then now he's saying it's not even anybody's fault. Errol Spence is just out of commission from the car wreck. And then you did a fight like Wilder and Fury, and then you said good things about PBC. I mean, none of this stuff makes sense.
Don't want it to happen. And it's not because promoters don't want it to happen, because I have grave doubts whether Errol Spence will be back in the ring in the foreseeable future. Unfortunately, as that may be, and I have received some inside intelligence that allows me to say that. So, I mean, let's pass on Errol Spence, because until we see him face to face, until he appears in public, until we can establish that he's ready to go back into the ring, it's unfortunate, but let's not talk about him. He's a lovely...
He said, let's not talk about him. He's basically in bad shape, and we don't know if he'll ever be back. Now, this was after Errol Spence's accident, late 2019, but earlier in 2019, this is what Bob Arum was saying. Los Angeles Times. I told you, I cross my T's. I dot my I's. I am the greatest when it comes to boxing and giving you guys the realistic, real information. And my memory is crazy. So the LA Times, the same year, Bob Arum was quoted, and it says Bob Arum claims Al Heyman will discourage Errol Spence Jr. fight deal with a white promoter. So it's funny when this even came out, because when black people complain about realistic things and injustices, inequalities, especially in boxing, I see a lot of non-black fans particularly, and people who are suspected bigots, and they say stuff like, oh, you blacks keep crying, or you're pulling the race card. But then when a Jewish promoter and Bob Arum from New York did an interview with the LA Times or whoever, and he says that Al Heyman, a black figure and advisor, will discourage a black fighter, African-American fighter that you see, Errol Spence, in dealing with him to make the Crawford fight, which people were saying is a mega fight, because he's a white promoter. What? And no one's saying like, oh, Bob Arum, you're pulling the race card. And this was by Lance Pugmire. It's why fans were sorting out the Terence Crawford low blow with Amir Khan. So this was after the Amir Khan fight. The target of Arum's wrath was his longtime adversary, Al Heyman, the powerful manager of PBC, blah, blah, blah. And here's a direct quote. I told you, I don't get on these videos and lie. Everything I say can be shown and proven. And I got the track record of excellence. I'm like Bret the Hitman Hart when it comes to this. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Quote, everyone knows I want the Errol Spence fight. That's the fight everyone wants. It's the fight I want to prove, Crawford said. Let's get to what Bob Arum says. It's inexcusable not to make fights that people want to see, right? It says Heyman's going to say, Spence, listen to me, Errol Spence. Don't listen to the white guys. Because if you listen to the white guys, they're going to steer you down the wrong road. Listen to me, brother. We're part of a brotherhood. And if I'm telling you not to fight Terence Crawford, I'm telling you not to fight Terence Crawford, Arum said. So Arum, out of nowhere, made this into, and this is part of why he's being sued, is he's saying that Al Heyman, a black fighter, would merely say, listen to me, brother, we're part of a brotherhood. So why would Al Heyman even talk to Errol Spence like that? Like, first of all, Al Heyman doesn't even do any interviews. So why would he just say, listen, brother? Like, is he Hulk Hogan? Oh, yeah, brother, Errol Spence, brother. Like that. This just sounds crazy to me. Like, especially since he doesn't even, Al Heyman don't even really show face. You never even see conversations. You never see him talk to his fighters. It's all behind the scenes stuff. So how do you know what he's saying? Again, this shows you the inconsistency with Terence Crawford's then team. Because Bob Arum, early in 2019, he says that Al Heyman is basically racist or he's biased, and he's going to say, listen, brother, don't fight Terence Crawford, brother. Don't work with the white promoters or whatever he's talking about. Then later you do a pact, which you're now being sued for not fulfilling and breaching that contract. And Terence Crawford is suing you, saying that you never paid him and you never secured him the Errol Spence fight, which is clearly that part is true. And then now you're being also sued with these injunctions, and it's saying that there's a revolting racial bias with Top Rank, and they don't have any black employees and stuff like that. So it's funny to see that you have a white promoter pulling the race card in 2019 with the LA Times and saying that the black promoter is going to steer you down this road and say, listen, brother, listen, we're a fraternity, we're a brotherhood, da-da-da. But Errol Spence, the black guy, and the other black guy, Al Heyman, they're not suing each other. Al Heyman is just securing Errol Spence Ugas, which was another marquee fight and another unification fight for Errol Spence, just like the Sean Porter fight. So while that relationship has not soured, clearly Terence Crawford's relationship with Bob Arum has come to this point where he's suing them and he's accusing these things. So it's just funny. I tell you, in life, there's a lot of times where a lot of things that people say is a mirror, and it's just a reflection of maybe who they are more than anything else. Like, people will say, oh, ego, you're broke. I'm not complaining about my money. I don't have no bills that ain't paid. You know what I'm saying? So people could say whatever they want about me, and then come to find out that person is broke. That person can't pay their car note. That person is about to get evicted or struggling or not paying child support or whatever they got going on. I don't have those issues. So at the end of the day, sometimes what people say about you is a mere reflection of what they feel, or, subconsciously something that's on their mind. And this looks like it could be the case with this whole situation. Al Heyman was a threat because Al Heyman has loyalty with his fighters. So you had to discourage Terence Crawford. This whole thing looks like a mess, to be honest. You know what I mean? It looks like a mess because just look at the evidence. It's inconsistent stories. 1 minute, Al Heyman's the cancer. Like, I could do this all day easily because I've been here for these moments, and I study and I prepare for these moments. So when they crack off, I'm always ready. I told you, I make boxing look good. I make this sport of boxing look pretty. So Bob Arum, at one point, he said Al Heyman is not even a real person, and he's a puppet or a robot, something to this effect. Then he says that Al Heyman is telling his black fighters, a black guy telling his black fighters, listen, brother, don't fight Terence Crawford and work with the white promoters. This is what he's alleging. But then in the end, it's the white promoter, if that's what we're calling him, you know what I'm saying, that is being sued by a black fighter for revolting bias. You know what I mean? So people say whatever they want. But going back to the earlier situation with this Spence $900,000 plus that they were required to pay Crawford, it's like, how did you account for making a pact that involves somebody else's fighter? You can't really control and ensure that fight gets done. Like me personally, I don't like to lose money. So if I had $1 million, I'm not gonna make no bet. Like, you ain't been able to get Crawford the fight with Errol Spence up to the Mean Machine point. So I'm not gonna put that pressure on myself and say, hey, within a year, Crawford, like you see on line 5, Crawford will fight with Spence on or before December 31st, 2020. This is the Spence bonus. It's like, how do you authorize something like that knowing you can't deliver it, and it's not like an in-house fight? Like, it'd be one thing if it was like you did this with Shakur Stevenson and told Shakur, hey, we'll give you $1 million if the Oscar Valdez fight don't happen within a year, because that's everybody under the same umbrella. You see what I'm saying? So there shouldn't really be any hangups. If Valdez alleges he would fight Shakur, and we know Shakur wants to fight Valdez, and they're both with top rank, there are no opposing sides of the street. There's really no friction that would stop or prevent that fight from happening. Let me know how I did in this video. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster.